Say it
Yeah,
again?
and now we have massive holes in the border.
We're-
Yeah,
Hold on,
because
come on,
it's a
stop,
separate
Gibbs.
issue.
No, it's not. It's not a separate issue. This guy's point was, oh, they applied
Islamic
for visas.
terrorism
Hold
and
on.
immigration
His
across
point
the
was-
southern
hold on.
border are
Oh,
not
no.
separate issues.
Hold on.
Pointed to a
Make-
single quote in this that says that she has any kind of policy say or enforcement
Because she's a
control
failure.
over-
She was put in charge of this and did nothing.
Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Today, we're going to be debating, right, on Kamala Harris and the border. A lot has been said about whether or not she was, quote unquote, the border czar in charge of immigration, all these things. We're going to talk about what she has done as vice president, what she advocated for, what she advocates for now, and whether or not that will be good for immigration, and just talk about Kamala Harris and her positions in general. But we're going to start with the border. We got quite the lineup. We're waiting on one more person. When they get here, we'll just slot them in. But you'll notice that we have the banned man himself. He just recently got unbanned from Twitch. Okay, Saul is back with us, and so we're gonna give him the mic first to start us off.
I'm 1v2ing. Give me the last word here, okay?
Give you the last word.
Give me the last word. Yeah, I'm the only one on my side. I need to know what they're gonna say.
So far, I mean, look, Portland's on your side too when he gets here. But fair
assuming
enough.
that late, I know how
Yeah,
those
if
are
he gets
up
here.
there in Washington.
Hopefully he's okay. I haven't heard from him today, so we'll see. Okay, well, with that, let's get started. And I guess if you want to go last, I can make you go last. Gibbs, do you mind going first, and then we'll.
Yeah, I'll go first. Sure. So the Democrats have been wholesale gaslighting the United States for too long. First, they told us Biden didn't have dementia and amnesia. Now, after calling Kamala Harris the border czar for 3.5 years almost, and having her take over for the woman that was originally titled the border czar before, take over the responsibilities, sending her down to the southern areas to see about this migration crisis and all these things.
They were like,
Hold
it's
on.
a really good thing
Portland,
you and
you're
Brandon
hot
didn't
micing.
vote.
You're hot
I
micing.
can't
I don't know
believe
who that
I was
is.
like, why?
Oh.
And so she said,
Okay.
well,
We're gonna.
my brother.
We're gonna mute him. Sorry
yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
he
no
could
problem.
DM you when he's better.
Yeah,
Don't
so
want it. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry before I lose my train of thought. So basically for 3.5 years, she's been called the border czar, she's replaced the border czar. The left leading media is the one who's called her the border czar for all this time. This czar thing, like, it's not even like an insult. We've had czars of all sorts of shit, and Republicans and Democrats, but she's just done such an abysmal job. Even if we wanted to rename her the migration czar instead, which is why, because she was supposed to go find the root causes or some shit like that. Listen, she failed at that. There's nothing she's ever actually accomplished as this border czar person. It's an utter failure. That's why they want to separate the name from it. But it's another example of just outright dishonesty and gaslighting by the Dems, trying to convince y'all of something that y'all know is true. Just like when they tell you inflation, is not that bad, jobs are record high, even though everybody's got to work 3 things. It's just dishonesty. It's hypocrisy. It's disgusting. And I think the American people are sick of it, hopefully.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. Looking forward to the debate. Average debate enjoyer. Tyler, please.
All right. Well, I'd like to start this out here for you guys by just kind of telling you a story.
You're going to be walking around.
When I was young, my parents took me to Oakland as a baby, and we went to a civil rights protest. And I was in a stroller with no straps on it, and the adults were really caught up in the protest. At some point, I fell out of the stroller, and they just kept marching. Well, eventually, they doubled back, and they saw I was really upset at that point. And my mom, when she tells the story about how I'm fussing, she asked me, "Baby, what do you want? What do you need?" And I looked at her and said, "Freedom." Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate. I don't like her. I don't think she was a good border czar, which she absolutely is. The term is colloquial. I'm going to go through the definition, historical uses of it, people that embraced it, didn't embrace it, and kind of what she actually was tasked with by Joe Biden.
Okay, thank you for being here. Looking forward to it. You're not going to go last, but you're going to go second to last, because I'm going to give Portland as much time as he needs to make sure that he's not hot micing and things like that.
I mean,
So,
I'm
Sans?
cool with I'm cool with going here.
Go
So
ahead.
I read through Tyler's document. It was really enlightening on what the border czar situation is, like the naming convention behind it. It seems like it's actually a neutral term, kind of, over the course of history, but we'll get into that. After reading some articles, I'm not actually sure if I should call her a border czar, but we can get into that. It's not really the biggest issue on this topic here. The topic more has to do with what her what's the word I'm looking for? Record on the
Policy?
border is.
Oh.
And so what she was tasked with was very specifically working with the Northern Triangle in Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, I think. And over the course of the time that she's been in charge as the quote unquote border czar, or whatever we want to call her, those three countries have seen a dramatic shift in the amount of people coming over. I think from Guatemala, it's down 50%, from Honduras, 19%, and the other one, I can't remember the number off the top of my head. We can get into it. It seems like in terms of what she was specifically tasked with doing and what she was given the powers to do, it seems like she actually did a pretty decent job. In terms of anything else to do with the border, we're going to have to go into policy and regarding Joe Biden, the Republicans, the Democrats, and everybody else, not just Kamala Harris per se. So we can get into that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, excellent. Now, hopefully he's ready. Hopefully he's set. We're going to try. Okay, Portland, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys, but
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too. Go ahead. Give us your opening thoughts.
opening thoughts, I think that it's both disingenuous and deeply misleading to refer to Kamala Harris as the border czar, and it's nothing more than a Republican talking point to take a very complex issue, condense it down into a very simple soundbite, and spoon feed it to people that aren't going to critically engage with it. That's pretty much all I have for opening thoughts. Look forward to chatting with everyone except for Gibbs.
Okay, well, wonderful. Love the energy. Let's see how it goes. So I guess we can just open it up to the floor. Go ahead, gang. The floor is yours.
Well, Sansa was saying I wrote a nice document up to kind of get all my notes and ideas all in one area for everyone to kind of review if they want to, so we can all be on the same page. I just took the history of the czars. There's a couple citations in there if you want to check them out. But essentially what they say is a czar is just an unofficial title, a nickname, a silly name that was given to make the point person that the president delegates a certain responsibility to. It just gave it a title, unofficial title. That's all it is. It's not an actual position. There's no swearing in or anything required. Sometimes they become official positions in different administrations and whatnot, but generally it's just kind of a brand that the media and both sides do. So in terms of, I guess I'll go at Portland here because this is our first debate together, even though we chat a lot. There was it was a bill. I don't know the actual term for it, but there was a bill condemning Kamala Harris for her bad actions, specifically using the term border czar, and Democrats were voting for it. A small handful of them, but still bipartisan. There, on top of that, you can go and look at almost every single media outlet, Axios, ABC, CNN, even MSNBC said it multiple times, called her the border czar. It's just a colloquial term. It doesn't have a set responsibilities to it. Where those responsibilities come from was what specifically Joe Biden delegated to her. And also in this links document I have here, I have the transcript of when Joe Biden delegated these powers to her. He gave her many more responsibilities than just the Northern Triangle, which he did give her those. But he also said that she was already working with Mexico, in talks with Mexico, and dealing with the surge currently at the southern border. So Joe Biden's own words, when he said, when she speaks for me, making her the point person, delegated the actual border to her as well.
And even in the press release and the transcript that you were so kind as to provide us all in the group chat, it's pretty clear, specifically multiple times cited as a diplomatic responsibility to engage with the people, the governing bodies of Mexico and the countries in the Northern Triangle to negotiate ways that the US could be party to improving conditions locally so as to prevent and like stem the need for migration in the first place. She wasn't delegated any specific powers, any governing authority over the border itself. There was no level of like direct involvement that was ever called out or intended to be like outlined in any of those press releases or conversations. It was specifically diplomatic duties that she was tasked with, and I think that it's really about what people want you to think when they use the term border czar versus what her actual responsibilities were on the ground and in application. And I think that those two thought processes are pretty far apart in terms of like her actual role on the ground, which was extremely minimal, if there was any at all, versus what people in the Republican contingent intend to convey when they refer to her as the border czar. They want to thrust the responsibility for the conditions of the border directly onto her.
Yeah, I just want to like touch on this. So in some aspects, I agree with Tyler. I understand that it doesn't mean anything, actually. It just means someone is in charge of a particular thing, and that's it. There's no other real qualifiers to it. The reason why I would kind of push back on the idea of like border czar is because she was more tasked with the diplomatic side of things. Upon researching this, there was someone, and so sorry, I'm trying to remember everyone's names. Admiral Gibbs referenced this. There was someone that
Roberta Jacobson is who it was.
She was like way more in what historically would be considered a border czar. Like they had a lot of leeway and a lot of power specifically at the border to do things at the border. Whereas what Joe Biden, even in the transcript of what Tyler sent, again, remember Portland said, it's mostly diplomatic stuff. And you're right, I did misspeak. It wasn't just the Northern Triangle. It also included places like Venezuela and Mexico and South America, but those were less of the focus since at the time the Northern Triangle was having such a surge in immigration. Yeah, so I guess that.
So I guess I just want to cut to the quick of this, right? Like, regardless of what we call her, did she do a good job with the responsibility she was given? What do we think?
I don't think we really have enough information to make any kind of judgments as it relates to like what she did specifically. I don't think that there's a tremendous amount of information available about what they were able to accomplish behind those closed doors, nor do I think we should hold extremely lofty expectations for what can be done to stem such a difficult problem and a complex problem in such a short amount of time.
No, actually, I have some stats.
Just a lot of jumping to the gun going on here in this conversation.
Let me just make sure I'm on the right article here. Let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. There is a lot of stuff in the Northern Triangle. Let's see what she actually got done. Get to the right paragraph. Sorry.
I'll save you some time. She got done jack shit. That's how she got done. She failed, like, unequivocally in every sense of the word. We could, like, sit here and do semantics over the border czar thing. Let's just cut to the facts. Here's some quick facts. Fact one, Roberta Johnson was the border czar under Biden. She did have more roles, allegedly, right? However, in the same speech, I posted the link, on March 24th, he said, I could think of nobody better to qualify to do this than the former, referring to Kamala Harris to take over for the job of Roberta Johnson. That is definitive proof that this is the person taking over this job. It's just like if I'm a CEO, I step down and someone else fills the CEO role. Guess what their title is now? It's a CEO. Now, I get this is an unofficial title, but nonetheless. Now, if we want to talk if she's
hold on. I'd just like to formally accept your concession on the first point, as this is a complete 180 from the conversation we had on Twitter no more than 4 days ago, where you steadfastly insisted that not only was she the border czar, but that the media referring to her as the border czar was like your substantive proof of that claim. So
the substantive proof is Biden
also
had her fill in the role.
Gibbs, you're like just like 100% wrong on the quote that you just referenced. He didn't say.
There's a whole thing.
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and I can think of nobody who is better qualified to do this than a former. Yeah, sorry, it's Biden, so it's going to be some stuttering here, okay? I can think of nobody who is better qualified to do this than a former. This is a woman who ran the second largest attorney general's office in America after the U.S. He didn't say there is no better person or that is qualified to take over for
I
Roberta
says,
Jameson.
this is the
or whatever.
exact quote. It says, I can think of nobody who's better qualified to do this than the former California Attorney General, Biden said.
Yeah, but what you
That's the
just said
exact
was
quote.
to take over the responsibilities that
Yeah,
this
to
other
take
person
over.
have. But that's not
The
because the
diplomatic
That's what it
paragraph
literally
right
says in
before
the
that.
paragraph, right before it, he's taking over for those responsibilities.
Yeah,
The
specifically
two
diplomatic
paragraphs before that say
responsibilities.
what he's
Regardless,
referring to.
listen, y'all are just trying to be Weasley. You're trying to
I'm
get
not
out
being
of what she's
weaselly.
being
You're
assigned to do.
referencing something, and I'm going
Hold
to the
on,
exact
just-
same thing that you're
I'm reading it
referencing.
to you.
and-
I don't understand how you're confused. Saying the Biden borders are set now. All right, before she did, Biden announced in a news conference that Harris would be responsible for addressing the Southwest border surge that had already begun within days of him taking office. That is the first part of the paragraph before the quote. What about that is
Yeah,
confusing
so
to
I
you?
said the several
Like, you
paragraphs
speak English,
before
right?
that.
Like, I feel like you're a
And so
smart
this
guy.
increase has been consequential, but the vice president has agreed, among multiple other things that I have her leading, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations hold on, let me finish the sentence. Let me finish the sentence. All right. Those nations sorry, he stutters, so it has all these dashes.
It's literally
Work
the
with these
stutters
nations to accept returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders. And then he reinforces at their borders. She's not in charge of directly the southern border. She's in charge of going after the root issues behind the push factors of migration.
Real quick,
This is just so dishonest.
hold on. Let me jump in here because when I hear Democrats say they want to address the root issues of crime, that's their way of fighting crime. So is your way of fighting immigration just addressing the root causes of immigration?
That's not the only
Because,
thing that we
like,
should do. No.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's still the same thing. She was still in charge of the border and the immigration. She was just doing what Democrats
This is
wanted.
another
Wait,
direct
hold
quote
on.
from
No,
Biden.
because there's
Hold on, let me read
several
one more
different
direct quote
ways
from
that you
Biden.
go about curbing
This is gonna
immigration.
put this back-
One of
this
them
back-
is going to be
back.
diplomatic and working with those nations
Oh,
where all
for
those
sure.
people are
I get
coming
it.
from. One is going to be actual border control that you have
Yeah,
right
which
there.
he
And then you're
says-
also going to have the asylum-seeking process and the deportation
I
process.
get it.
There's multiple different things that we're looking at here,
But
and
the
she was
fact
in
that she
charge
was
of
doing
one of
it-
them. She was in
Hold
charge
on.
of one of those aspects. And
This
you
is the
can
most
see,
dishonest bullshit
and
I've ever heard.
it's not dishonest
Let me-
because you
let
can
me read
see
you one more
all of
quote.
the
Hold on,
policies,
hold
all of the policies
Please
that
stop.
went
All of you
that
stop.
happened
All of you
at the
stop.
border through
All of you.
Biden.
Sansol,
I just
all
had
of
to say
you,
that.
all of you. Okay. You can't. No one can hear you guys when you talk over each other. We do have to go one at a time. Sansol finished, but he was talking over me, right? But he finished. So now, Gibbs, now you can give your quote, but don't try to keep interrupting him to give the
Well,
quote.
I mean,
okay?
I got asked, first of all, I got asked a question by Portland here, and I didn't even get a chance to answer that because you tried to sit here and say I was backing up.
The floor
But
is yours.
second-
Use it however
Yes,
you
I
like.
am going to use it. So this is going to put both these things to bed. This is another direct quote from Biden. All right. When she speaks for me. She doesn't have to check with me. She knows what she's doing. I hope she can move this along, parentheses, to address the, in parentheses, increasing challenges at our southwest border. No one who knows this better than the vice president. That's a direct quote.
Yeah,
so he
you're ignoring the
directly
entire rest of
hold
the
on.
context of that.
Hold on, there's
thing.
more. There's more. I could keep reading. He keeps giving out specifics that she's going on further in the speech. This is what the problem is, right? You're being dishonest. She's clearly been put in charge by Biden to take over for Jacobson, and sit here take over for her as the borders are. Now, y'all want to sit here and say like she didn't go down the border. She only visited once. Okay, that's right. She's a failure. She should have gone down more. She should have done more about the border. Oh, she tried to address the migration issues. She failed at that. The migrants are coming in droves. Texas had to sit here and fight the U.S. government and put up the fence and was successful at stopping 85% immigration because guess what? The walls worked. It's amazing how that happened. And she gets over here. And the only credit that y'all are getting is because of Texas' success, despite the Biden-Harris administration trying to tear down those walls that have been proven to be 85% effective. So that's absolutely ridiculous that y'all are going to sit here and try to go, oh, well, she wasn't. Whenever Biden in his speech is saying she's in charge of the border, bro. Like, just come on.
Gibbs, can you find
stop
me
lying.
like a single instance in that speech where Biden says that Kamala Harris is directly in charge of the border, the
Yes.
operations, the policies of immigration?
Yes, in that speech, he directly said
Yeah, there's another one.
she's already been talking with Mexico. He says she's already working with Mexico and been in talks with them before March of 2021. meaning she's been delegating the border policy with Mexico to address the surge that was already here, as Biden said. I got that in my notes too. That was one of my
how does that
main
go
arguments.
against? Hold on, really quick. How does that go against the line that I read just a minute ago, where that I have her leading, and I appreciate it. She agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with nations to accept the returnees, enhance migration enforcement at their borders. At their borders. How does that? How does that conflict? How does that change what I'm saying?
I don't think it does. I think those are two different responsibilities that she was in charge of.
No, those. No, you haven't shown the first responsibility that you're claiming. I'm showing in his speech the words that he is using to say that what her responsibilities were, or what he's putting her in charge of, right?
Let's get on the same page here about what that means. Is speaking to Mexican officials about returnee policy and strengthening their borders, is that or is that not a diplomatic mission? Can the two above me please answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fully within her writ. And I would argue she did a pretty good job with the spike that she saw, even though the final results are still 5 times more than Trump's yearly average from all those same countries. But she's doing a good job with the spike she had to work with.
Gibbs, can you clarify for me whether or not you acknowledge that engaging with Mexican officials to discuss policies related to their side of the border is a diplomatic mission and not one where she has in direct involvement with any kind of lawmaking process?
I mean, I'm gonna just quote the next part of the Joe
No.
Biden
Answer the
speech.
fucking question.
I am gonna answer the question.
No. Don't answer it with a rant. Answer it with a yes or no. Is it or is it not a diplomatic mission? Is it or is it not a diplomatic mission? It's a yes or no question.
Do you want me to answer the question?
I want you to answer yes or no to the yes or no question, not ramble for 5 minutes about Raytheon and your.
Listen, you can keep. We can get nothing done, or I can actually answer the question.
No, you can't answer the question. You're demonstrating it right now. Answer the different question that you want to talk about.
I guess I can't. All right. So, in the words of Joe Biden, you can chew bubble gum and walk. You can do two things simultaneously. So, yes, she was doing diplomatic missions. And secondly, she was also, and I quote Biden on this, and I quote, this is the quote that he says right here. It says, "Oh, while we are clear that people should not come to the border, we also understand we will enforce the law." Because we can chew gum and walk at the same time. So she's clearly talking about going to diplomatic missions and enforcing the law here in the United States. It's both.
How can you possibly think that was an answer to my question? Do you have Tourette's? Did those words spill out randomly?
It was pretty simple English. I mean, if you can't follow along simple English, then I guess nobody understands Joe Biden either.
Just from my understanding, Gibbs, can you read that quote one more time?
Yeah. So, okay, while we are clear that people should not come to the border now, we also understand we will enforce the law because we can chew gum and walk at the same time.
What does it have to do with Kamala Harris?
Literally
nothing. That's Biden referring to Kamala Harris as the border czar. To tell and saying diplomatic mission, basically referencing that she's going to try to stop the migration and she needs to enforce the law here on the border. That is what he's talking about as her responsibility. And this is in the same speech.
The same speech?
It's in an article, in the same speech. It's all in those articles I posted. You just scroll through.
Hold on.
And look, here's the next sentence. How I want to keep going. Here's the next sentence. Chew walk at the same time. We must address the root cause that people to make the trek. That's part of it. Look, right. She's also looked forward to working with Congress to address root causes. To say the work will not be easy, but it's important work. So yeah, diplomatic missions and the law on the border.
Yeah, no, you're super right. She referenced Congress. She's talking about, and this seems to be a running theme across every single article that I've read, across every single ideological bent that they might be on, that the Biden-Harris administration, in terms of policy, in terms of enforcement measures that we could take at the border, they want it to go through Congress because the executive branch doesn't seem like they're much in the business of trying to rule through executive fiat, right? So if we want a court, going by the way that they've been running the administration thus far, if they want there to be new laws, new things to be enforced at the border, a new law would have to be passed through Congress. And you can shake your head at that, but that seems to be the running theme across every single quote from both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the head of the DHS and every single person that has made a statement on the border from the administration. It seems like the administration wants any kind of policy to not be executive fiat, but to go through Congress, which they have attempted to do. But it seems like the Republicans are very interested in passing that legislation. But we can talk
It's not
more
by
specifically.
fiat. You're only offering two different options when the Department of Homeland Services, the DHS, has almost complete control over the border. They can set the border policy. The Biden administration bragged about completely gutting the Trump DHS so they could implement their own border policy. And Biden, a quote from him is, he wants people, asylum seekers, to surge the border. So in 2010, after the Obama administration opened up asylum, the credible fear loophole was done by Obama in 2010. After that, Biden told people to surge the border. He got that surge and he started letting them in. Some months we have 80% of people that came to the border got in. And so like it was his intended policy. That's what he said during the primary, is that he wants people to surge the border. We're a compassionate nation. This is what needs to be done. So this is what they wanted. As far as Harris, the only responsibility she doesn't get to pick the policy. Kamala Harris was for decriminalizing illegal immigration, just turning it into a civil infraction. So this wasn't her policy because we kept illegal immigration illegal under the Biden administration. This was his. All she did was and I'd say she did a pretty solid job at it if we're just judging her. Everything else is on the Biden administration because Harris would be far to the left of him.
So do we agree then that a person in the role of the border czar would probably have at the very least like direct input and like opportunity to help craft policy and legislation around the border? Or are we just kind of getting away from that term completely? I already accepted Gibbs' concession, so it's fine if we are. But if we're moving past like whether or not she's the border czar, nope, okay, check one for me and Santo.
Wick asked that question. Wick asked the next question. I thought we were done with that. It's not like you just gave it up.
We've already, hold on. This is once again just ignoring that Biden said when she speaks for me. She doesn't have to check with me.
What is it in reference to, you dumb motherfucker? Jesus Christ, how many times do we have to fucking say this?
So she obviously has come over the border, so she doesn't have to.
But you haven't pointed to a single quote in this that says that she has any kind of policy say or enforcement.
Because she's a failure. She wasn't put in charge of this and did nothing.
Not what a
How can she
czar
fail at something that she
does.
wasn't put in charge of, Admiral Gibbs?
She's the vice president.
Put in charge. She was told to do something. She was said, "You speak for me." Put
Yeah,
whatever
and what
policy
he
in
says
place.
that
And
she's
her
supposed to
policy
do,
was having a
what
thumb
she
up her ass.
says she's supposed to do throughout the entire speech is that Kamala Harris is supposed to be leading the diplomatic push in Mexico, in the Northern
And if
Triangle.
she failed, the migrants didn't stop coming, did they? They're still coming.
No, they
here in the border.
in one of the countries that she went to and worked with to like build up industry to keep people from wanting to leave, the immigration from that country slashed in half. In terms of the places that she went to, the immigration has dropped substantially. And instead,
When she said "do not come," they listened.
They listened. But the problem is that since 2021, the places where immigrants are coming from have shifted from the Northern Triangle in Mexico and South America to places like Cuba and Jamaica and other places like that over there. I forget the third country. That's like
Venezuela is another one.
Venezuela, thank you.
Even China is contributing a decent amount of like border contacts.
Yeah,
at this
but that's
point.
like relatively recent. I don't know if we have a
I think that's
policy
almost beside the point.
problem. Yeah, but in terms of like the massive waves of immigration,
the point is that the issue is extremely complex and that there is a fluid situation at the border that is going to be like an ongoing issue for probably the next several presidencies. Whether you build a mega wall or not, you're still going to be engaging. You still have to engage with the asylum system in pretty meaningful way to improve the infrastructure that we have to process asylum claims, hiring more judges, employing more attorneys to help adjudicate those cases. Like, this is a long-term process, and it's an evolving process that looks different every year. And we are really, really eager to see results. I understand that, but policies take a long time to materialize, especially complex policies that involve multiple nations kind of governing through aid and improving conditions on the ground to alleviate the necessity for people to want to leave in the first place. And you're also always vulnerable to natural disasters, like producing more spikes in immigration and contacts at the border too, which obviously has been an ongoing issue as we continue to deal with the ramifications of climate change globally. So there's just not a specific policy that you can point to say, like, implement this X, Y, and Z, and within 2 or 3 years we'll see a significant downtick in contacts at the border, as long as the asylum process remains in relatively to the same state that it is, and it's pretty broken right now just from a manpower standpoint.
Manpower standpoint, and the process itself, like, definitely needs an overhaul. These are rules from, I think the last time that they did change was sometime in the 1990s, early 1990s. But like in terms of like seeking asylum, these rules are from the 50s and late 60s respectively, the treaty with the UN. So like, yeah, we need an overhaul, and we have the you know the leeway to define how someone applies for asylum in our country, but nobody wants to touch that issue because everyone agrees that we should have the ability to bring in asylum seekers, people that are genuinely scared, but we have loopholes that nobody seems to want to fix. When we do have ways to try and go about fixing those things, people will tank the bills. I mean, again, I'm going to look at the bill from earlier this year that a Republican drafted.
What about the one under Trump that had everything in that bill but more? Like, so there was 500 million for the judges instead of 300 million. Trump put one out, and the Democrats tanked that one. Why aren't we talking about that? What's the issue? What's going on there with that then? If y'all really want to change, y'all want to let the one that had the wall and everything y'all wanted in this other thing. Well, see, it's not though. And let me tell you why. We've had an 85% decrease in illegal immigration here in Texas where we built the wall, despite the Biden-Harris administration, which seems their only policy is to tear down Texas walls when we put them up. So once we started Operation Lone Star, I've already posted the links in chat in the Discord. They sit here. They've had an 85% decrease. I'm going to give you another example. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
How much was that decrease compared to like neighboring states?
Interview. We were having up to between 1,500 and 2,500 people a day come just through Shelby Park. Since they put the wall up and the Texas governors and the National Guard stopped the Border Patrol from coming in and tearing it down, they're averaging 3 a week. I don't know. Seems like they're working.
85% decrease. First off, I'm sorry to source me, but source me on that one.
It's in the chat.
The chat.
I posted everything.
Okay, while you look at that, $5,
real quick, I just need to know: is it the DM chat or is it the like
Discord?
Oh, okay, gotcha. You go ahead and read your thing.
$5 from Joe the Mig to say, per Pew, illegal entry of Mexicans was still 4 million in 2022. The last vetted data point, down only 300,000 since 2019. Thank you for the $5.
I can jump into some of those. So
please.
I have a Pew citation in there and a couple other ones that help kind of break down where the immigration's coming from and whatnot. It only goes to 2023. And the 2024 numbers for Biden's border have been looking better than the rest of his administration. That being said, Guatemala spiked to 40,000 people at most. I think it was a little more than that under the Trump administration. In 2021, it went to 420,000. So this is what Kamala Harris had to deal with as the czar. Now it sits at 200,000. So she definitely cut it down by almost 60%, but it's still like 5 times Trump's 4-year average. So it's definitely not fixed. It is better than she got. So you have to give her, in terms of did she do a good job on some of these countries, you have to give her that. I'd say Mexico is the one that spiked back down the least. And now we actually have, for the first time in like 20 years, we are no longer net negative migration from Mexico, I'm pretty sure. Trump's 4-year average for all of these nations, though, was like 5, 6, 7 times lower than Kamala Harris's most successful year.
So
yeah, but throughout 2020, we had basically non-existent migrant flow because of COVID restrictions and the difficulty a group would have traversing the borders up to the United States. Like, mobility was significantly decreased and obviously drug down the numbers quite a bit. Not to say that you could attribute the entirety of the statistical difference to COVID, but 2020 being such an exceptional year for a lot of really obvious reasons related to migratory ability, I think does skew those numbers quite a bit.
You're right. That's why I tried to use the 4-year average.
Yeah. So a question then for your side, Tyler. Given that you at least, maybe not Gibbs, but you at least admit that what she seems to have been taxed with, she performed well. What can we expect going forward if Kamala is elected as president? Do you think that she will carry on these policies, and do you think she will do a good job at the border, whatever that means to you, when she's actually not just the border baron, but the president of the United States. Go ahead.
As a Bill Clinton Democrat, I want me a Bill Clinton border, and I don't think she's going to be as tough as I want her to be. And like old Joe Biden, like 90s Joe Biden, that's the type of border I like. Not as tough as Trump, but still pretty tough. That being said, I don't think she's going to live up to that. So we don't know. Kamala Harris hasn't done a press conference since she took the supposed nomination. She's only been asked a couple of questions, and I linked one as the YouTube video toward the bottom of the citation. She got asked about inflation. She completely fumbled it. It was a terrible answer. So we don't know her immigration stance. We know her 2020 stance, but her staff has recently come out and denounced her 2020 stance and said she's kind of going to ride with the Biden agenda on the border, which would be smarter in my opinion. But still, I don't think it's strong enough. I think we need either that Senate bill Sanzo was talking about, or HR2 from the House, or something in between. Both of those bills would have addressed this asylum loophole with credible fear. And I would have been happy with either one, to be completely honest with you, as a moderate. But I can see why the GOP did not like instantiating catch and release into law, and why they would have voted that Senate bill down. So.
Well, to be really clear, the reason they voted that Senate bill down is because they were told to. But we know and understand that most legislation, especially dealing with extremely complex topics, can leave something to be desired, and it's understandable that you would have criticisms of catch and release. One thing that I want to try and understand from both of you, hopefully, although I'm not sure we'll get very far, is like, what exactly is your big fear with the status quo? Because I hear a lot of people talking about their problems with illegal immigration as it relates to crime and inflation. I hear a lot of bad numbers tossed out. Like, give me the elevator pitch as to why we need to urgently discourage the number of people we're seeing, rather than just expand our capacity to process them and take in the appropriate asylum seekers.
Gibbs, you want to go first on this one? Because mine's probably not partisan.
Okay, while
No,
you
go
argue
ahead.
about that, $20 from Artemis Fowl to say what she was tasked with. She physically did nothing and was called out by CNN for not going down to the border for over a year after getting tasked. Border
That's true.
crossings are down, but illegal migrants are flown into the U.S. But go ahead.
We have a labor shortage. So,
You go ahead.
I think the flying in, there was it was less than 1 million. I think it was like 300,000 out of Cuba. And that's a whole different, that's Biden's potentially illegal visa program that his DHS just made up out of whole cloth. Completely different subject. That's my beef with the Biden administration. That being said, my fear of the border is not that it's the asylee process we have doesn't vet people the same way that our legal immigration system does. I think we should open up how many people we take in per year instead of trying to open up the asylum system and just let people in unproperly vetted, throw them into cities like New York, Chicago that are being completely overrun. Homeless people are having problems. Places where the asylees don't even have places to stay in some circumstances. I saw an article about a city in Ohio. There was 10 people from Honduras to a hotel room. Things like that, just inhumane treatment like that, because we're taking in too many too fast with a system that isn't meant to do that. If we opened up our broader actual immigration system, I personally advocate for how many migrants we should take in every year should directly correlate with how many open jobs we have in the market right then. Try to match skill sets a little bit, but you don't want a planned economy.
Gibbs,
what is the question?
what is your main concern with regard to the people coming to the southern border right now? What is the threat that they present to the domestic population of the United States and its greater welfare that you think needs to be urgently addressed?
Yeah, so I'll definitely dive into that. So like I know people know that I'm pretty staunch on like I want the secure border. I actually want immigration overhaul as well. We need to like overhaul it. If people want to come here to work, I love it. Good. The more of them. Like we need bodies. We need people to work. That's fine with me. I'm okay with that. I don't like the asylum process. That needs to be overhauled. All the immigration needs to be overhauled. I also want a secure border. The issues that I have when it comes to the first issue, the biggest one we're having currently now here in Texas, is the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure. It's causing a very massive strain on the population down here. We're having like the homeless populations flying up, and it's a lot of due to the immigrants coming in and taking over some of the bedding. And it's not because they're specifically taking over bedding and stuff when they leave some of these centers, but it's just like, they don't have any place to go, so like they're all fighting for a certain amount of whatever. That's a big problem. Infrastructure is the number one problem down here. Number two, sex trafficking. That's a big reason I want the border wall up, and I want to come through ports of entry, because sex trafficking is such a massive issue down here. There, just the other day, this is like a once a week thing where they stop like a semi, and there's full of women and children that being taken God knows where. It's a problem. We have all sorts of these kind of things. The coyotes are all evil. Like, it's dangerous to cross. I feel like the reason why people cross is because it's dangerous, but it's worth the risk. If you have like something that's so secure that it's not worth the risk, you know you're 99% going to die. Guess what? You're going to wait to do it the legal way, and then I think that's going to be much safer for everybody, because people are going to be going through safe ports of entry. We're going to know who's coming. Also, we also have a lot of the drug problems. The fentanyl is real bad currently. We've always had drug problems down here in Texas, just being on the border with Mexico. Those are issues. The gang violence has been pretty much an issue down here along the border cities. The Zetas are in a war with, I think, Sinaloa right now, and so they're in and I think there's a third party that's acting up as well, and that's spilling over into places like El Paso and in Brownsville and Laredo, especially Laredo. Nuevo Laredo, I used to be able to go to when I was like 8, 9. Now it's a goddamn war zone. These are problems. Like, these are all major issues. Now, like I said, I don't have an issue with people wanting to come here. Like, I think we're a nation of immigrants. I think we need immigration overhaul reform. But like, if we don't secure the border, it's just going to lead to more issues. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
Well, you asked the question, Portland.
Yeah, and I'm digesting the answers. I didn't ask it for any particular lead into a retort.
Okay.
I'm just kind of wanting to get the lay of the land a little bit.
Sure. While you digest, $10 from Artemis Fowl. More Chinese spies, Iranian and ISIS terrorist affiliates, and Russians have been encountered at the border and released into the U.S. in the last 3 years than in the last 20 combined. What are our thoughts on that?
Let me jump on that real quick. I'll finish.
I just want to ask a question.
It's just 1 second. I forgot to mention that there is an influx in like other foreign nationals, not from Latin America, but it's a pretty small increase. Like, I wouldn't list that as a top like 5 threat, but I guess it only takes a few to cause a September 11th.
Okay, Sansol, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, like, when it comes to like the foreign nationals, like they referenced Russia, is it not inconceivable that those are people that are actually fleeing Russia because they don't want to be drafted into the Russian army so that they don't have to go die in Ukraine? Like, I would have if you see a foreign national that's claiming asylum in the United States, you can probably guess based off of which country it is why they might be fleeing that country, right? I don't think it's inconceivable, especially since we know about Chinese immigrants coming over through the southern border and other countries like that. I think it's some Southeast Asian country like Cambodia.
Foreign nationals does beef up the number, probably.
But it's also fair to assume the opposite. We know that Chinese government has direct ties to the cartel, right? We know that. It's like an unequivocal fact. They're using Chinese chemicals that make the fentanyl. We've had reports of them like operating with the cartels and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I can find some quotes if you want me to, like and stuff. It's not a big deal. But like, we know they're working together. They're in cahoots. So like, this is a foreign adversarial power. It's also conceivable that among these refugees, that they could sneak some baddies in. I don't know why that's a revolutionary idea either. And the idea that we don't want these people to go through a legal port of entry and get vetted, and we're just okay with, hey, jumping el coyote, mijo, let's go. Like, that's fine. Like, that's a problem. Like, that's a problem. Like, we should know.
Everybody recognizes that it's probably.
Why would individuals with the backing of foreign governments use ports of it, like use the southern border as their like entry point of choice? Why? It seems like because people with the backing of foreign governments can do things like apply for visas. Like, you
still Team 6 apply for a visa when they took down bin Laden? No.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because who did apply for work visas and were here illegally because they overstayed them? The 9/11 hijackers, the people who were responsible for hijacking the planes and crashing them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon in the first place.
That doesn't help your case. That makes it even more
verified.
Yeah, like, that doesn't help your case at all. We had a weak security system and it failed. Instead of what we got now is no security system. Like, good. Yeah, you're right. They applied for visas. We did catch them. And so now we have a wide open stretch of land where you can just walk across. You don't even have to do that little bit of security. Like,
Wait, hold on. It's the exact opposite. We used to have no security system like that because we weren't expecting to get planes flown into our buildings.
Sure.
Whereas right after that, everyone complains about the Patriot Act and all of these different, security bills that we passed. So we had less back then, and now we have more. And we haven't had any
specifically, to be clear.
Say it
Yeah,
again?
and now we have massive holes in the border.
We're-
What I'm
we're-
saying,
Yeah,
Hold on,
because
hold on,
it's a
stop,
separate
Gibbs.
issue.
no, it's not. It's not a separate issue. This guy's point was, oh, they applied
Islamic
for visas.
terrorism
Hold
and
on.
immigration
His
across
point
the
was,
southern
hold on.
border are
Hold-
not
no,
separate
hold
issues.
on. We have
I just want you to say that.
example-
I just want you to
we
say
have-
that.
we have- they are not
Immigration
sep-
and
they are
Islamic
definitely tied
terrorism
together.
are
Hold
not
on.
the same, are the exact
They
same
are
thing.
tied together, absolutely. We have examples of people, like we've found prayer blankets out there. We have people from Arab countries coming across the southern border illegally. I don't know why you can't think, oh, if they could, some people could sneak across using visas, why wouldn't they just also use, oh, this open patch of land with no wall to walk across?
And
then
it
just
seems
sneak in with
like if
papers
we were
they
to
Can I
got
just
like
jump
look
in here
back
for a
in,
one-liner?
Like, are you just like no common sense?
no, I'm just like just trying to think like of a single time, and maybe you might be a little bit older than me. You might be able to remember this. Has there been a second 9/11 in the United States since any of those bills passed? Since we had these massive surges at the border, have there been any terrorists that came over the southern border and killed everyone?
I mean, the point is not have we had it. The point is, it could it happen?
Could it happen? Yes, that's a really good question. And yet we've had so many people.
But you're just
that are on
dismissing
it.
this
Well,
out
no,
of hand.
I'm not dismissing it out of hand because it is something that we should worry about. And yet, when we have people that are on the terrorism watch list cross the border, we've had
92 people on the terrorism law says we've caught by interactions trying to cross illegally.
Can I just
How is
throw
that-
something
like,
in
you
here?
just say
yeah,
this
they
is
were
not a
caught.
thing?
So it seems
Can I
like
throw
we have
something in here
some
that might
pretty
link
good
these two?
protections. But yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
How many more
I
are
almost called
getting
you
through?
Jeff for some
Let
reason.
me throw one thing in here that might link these two.
Tyler,
So one of
please.
the things in HR2, a provision that HR2 tries to correct is if you're going to fly in here after applying from the Biden's immigration act, the HR2 would make it so you can no longer use an ICE wanted poster to prove your identification before you get on a plane headed to the United States. So I would say the two are kind of related.
Fair. But yeah, like
Go ahead, Sansa.
here's the thing. The border needs some addressing, and I think that at this point, even the Democrats are on board with that. You can talk about hypocrisy all you want. You can talk about how they could have done something in the past, but they haven't. But it seems like in response to what voters want, it seems like they are listening, and it seems like they are wanting to pass legislation that would be codified in law and actually, fix some of the issues that we have down there. I mean, even Tyler agrees that the bill that was written by a Republican, had Republican sponsors, was approved by the Democrats, right? Because they had to give a ton of concessions away, but they felt like politically it was a non-starter that they could continue down the path that we've been going with immigration. So they were willing to take a lot of right-wing, provisions into that bill as concessions because they needed to get it through, and yet it's still tanked. Why? Again, Mr. Trump, he's been cited by multiple lawmakers that are part of the Senate, like Mitch McConnell, said that it was because of Trump that it was tanked. It's not because they had specific, like, oh no, well, this is actually like a nothing bill. It is a pretty stringent bill. Every single like immigrants' rights organization thing that I was researching.
So why did Tim shut down the better one? The one with the border security and all the things in the
Because it
bill
was
with
too much for them.
Because
Because again,
it was Trump.
oh,
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They were just sitting
well,
there
yeah,
going, oh, we
because
don't want
maybe
Trump to
Trump
have
is
a
a little
win.
bit too extreme for maybe what the
But he
like
gave
broader
you
American
everything in this bill, and he wanted security
and then
secure
more,
border.
and he wanted to build a wall, and he was still
Why is
doing
that a
the
bad
thing
thing when it's proved it works?
because the border wall is a like stupid meme.
It's
of a
85% decrease.
Why are we
85%
listening?
decrease here in Texas. Why? Like you say, it's a meme. 85% decrease anywhere where there's been a wall put up in Texas. Seems
That's
like
not
it's
the
working.
thing that you just linked. Was saying was
It's
85%.
Operation Lone Star seeing 85% decrease.
Was Operation Lone Star just building the border wall?
It's trying to stop the U.S. government from taking it down. Basically, yeah.
Fuck.
And
I think
some other
that I
enforcement
think
stuff.
my browser is crashing, which kind of sucks because I can't open up the thing that I just read that you sent. But what I was reading there is that there was a whole bunch of different things that they were doing. Like again, this was like a big contingent.
Yeah, they
thing
sent the
between
National Guard to enforce the border, to catch people and stop
Yeah.
them from coming in and building walls and throwing up borders. Like that's what they did.
border fences and a continuous wall that runs the entire length of the
major
border.
portions of it, like Shelby Park, for example.
Shelby
Park's the
Park
big
is a
one.
major portion of
It's a major portion because there's crossable areas, there's uncrossable areas, right? And they also have the buoys up, which just got ruled to be fine. That's part of the border wall. That's under Abbott. That's part of Operation Lodestar. Like you just these things are working. Like they're working. There's like Dan and Patrick just gave an interview a couple months ago talking about went from 2,500 a day, from 1,500 to 2,500 a day to 3 a day. Like this is crazy. Like I don't know how you can sit here and say these aren't working.
Fuck, I don't know why I'm trying to pull up the myriad of articles I have. But
While
I think
you're
my
trying to
thing's
do that,
crashing. Damn it.
$20 from Artemis Fowl to say the concessions mean nothing when POTUS is literally given the power to override the border lockdowns and maximums at his discretion. Walls don't work. Why are migration routes shifting to Southern California in response? Go ahead.
He's absolutely right. Border security does work. We know how to actually stop the flow of people coming in illegally. That being said, most of the people coming in illegally under the Biden administration are people coming in at non-ports of entry that are applying for asylum anyways. And all they're going to do is just shift to the ports of entry. Like, it's not going to stop the amount of people coming in as asylum seekers if we build a wall. We have to do something about the asylum system to actually change that problem. Now, it will stop the gotaway. We don't know how many gotaways come into the country any given year, but there's estimates. And under Trump, it was estimated about 600,000 a year came in on average in 4 years. Under Biden, I've seen estimates that it could be somewhere the same, or it could be somewhere 5 times higher. Trump would use the biggest number and say 22 million people are here between illegal visa programs, asylum abuse, and also the gotaways, but I don't think it's nearly that high, but we have no idea. So that's kind of why border security is important, is the people that we're not vetting at all are the ones that could be terrorists or criminals or coyotes or smugglers, bringing children in and things like that. That's why. And it's not about like better or worse. I really feel like the left-wing argument of compassion over law and order is not a losing argument. You do want to enforce some laws, but how strict those laws are and who we let in is still a solid argument. I just think we need to tighten up the credible fear loophole a bit. Maybe not to what it was, but just tighten it a little bit.
Yeah, and see, like, that's a reasonable conversation to have, but unfortunately, what we actually have is a bunch of people saying that instead of doing anything that, people who study immigration, know how to curb immigration, know exactly what's wrong with our immigration system, things that we could do to improve our immigration system, how to tide the wave of immigrants coming in from the southern border. All that. Instead, we're going to put up a wall, which doesn't work. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't
The stats
seem
say
like
it's working though.
you're saying
prevent...
that you're attributing 100% of the gains in this stat that I'm not even sure if I necessarily agree. I mean,
if you're having like 1,500 to like 2,500,
just real quick.
But there's a how much can you
hold on, just so I can be very clear from you, Sansel, and I'll ask you this directly: is your argument that the walls don't work?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a wall by itself is going to be anything that's going to stop anything going on at the border. Like, we would have to have the most technologically advanced, hardcore, constantly patrolled across our entire 1,000+ mile long border along the entire Rio Grande River. For what? Something that people could find a way around, for something that people could saw through, for something that people could dig under if it wasn't properly like staffed and maintained at all times. Like the idea that we would like sink all that money into something that like would still, guess what? You're never going to get rid of 100% of illegal immigration. That's just something that doesn't happen. You can say we should stop
100%.
I hate to be a debate bro here, but this is the reverse nirvana fallacy. And if you follow this logic in terms of lawmaking, you would say, well, we can't ever stop murders, so let's just get rid of
Well, no, what I'm saying is, no, like, that would be like saying...
Gibbs, that's a cello, not a violin.
Sorry, I don't understand the reference.
He's playing the world's smallest cello, and he doesn't understand. It's fine, though.
What I'm trying to say is, why would we go with this thing that... Number one, we don't even know if it's actually going to work if we do like the 100% go full tilt into it, when we do know that there are all these different avenues that we can work with that wouldn't be a constant sink of money, constantly repairing parts of walls that were destroyed, constantly patrolling the entire stretch of our southern border. Like, why can't we like do something that is proven to work, that we know would probably work a lot better, change the way that the asylum system, because that's the biggest reason that people are coming over here, because they know that they can do the, damn it, you've referenced it like 5 times, Tyler. The
Credible fear
loophole. They can come over here. I'm pretty sure that when that loophole came about, that was when we started seeing much more massive spikes in illegal immigration, right? So if we tried to actually like fix those things, disincentivized through the means that we know how, without building one of the most expansive infrastructure projects of possibly human history, with the amount of tech and the amount of people that would have to be staffing it, and the height that it would have to be, and the materials it would have to be made of, like at that point, like you might as well just like create a Death Star.
Don't you like public works? There you go, public works.
I like public works that actually like serve a really good purpose.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, like stopping 85% immigration.
We could like a public, like as worse, we could build like a 500-foot giant golden dildo in the middle of fucking Staten Island.
No, let me
but
just
that's
ask you a
not
question,
giving anyone
Sansol.
any benefits. So why the fuck would we do it?
No, let me just ask you a question. Say I have a house, right? And I have a backyard. And I have these kids, punk kids, and they're always smoking weed in my backyard, not giving me none. Bastards. So what do I want to do? I want to stop them. So they're there every single day, every day. I build a fence. They're not there anymore. Would you say that it's likely that the fence had a significant impact on them not being there no more?
Do you think
What
that
happened to
your
this
back?
conversation?
Do you think
answer
that?
the question.
Do you think that your? Do you think that your?
No, because I'm gonna make it make sense.
Do you think that your backyard is comparable to the border of the United States of America?
In this situation, it is. It's applicable. Would you agree in that situation, me building a fence and them not getting my backyard no more, is the fence is the direct component? Would you agree?
Sorry, what was that last?
Me building a fence and them not being in my backyard no more.
The last couple of words.
Would you agree that the fence is the determining factor in that one specific scenario?
In that one very specific scenario.
So, same thing, Shelby Park. They had 1,500 to 2,500 a day, built the fence, next day dropped.
And then
to like
what else
almost
did they?
zero.
Okay, in that one area, the border, 1,000+ miles long. They had how many?
But they can't cross in every one of those places. There's rapids in the Rio Grande. Some there's too deep, or there's alligator. Like there's areas.
There's so many things that you're not taking into consideration because it's so stupid. I'm so sorry. Shut the fuck up.
You're the one not taking it.
You're the one not
taking it.
Like,
I mean, listen,
the teenagers that are smoking weed in your backyard are probably not as determined to smoke specifically in your backyard as the illegal migrants that are coming into the United States want to come over here for the specific purpose of either getting economic benefits or getting the fuck away from their oppressive regimes.
So the wall going up and it's dropping the next day.
Teenagers smoking weed can't just like find another easy place to smoke weed compared to people that are running from like economic devastation or political devastation. Like the idea that there's so many things wrong with the comparison, but if your mind is so small that you can only subtract things all the way down to the size of your backyard in order to make an analogy, sure, we can go ahead with that. A better analogy would be like if there was like,
because they could go around way over
here. For every
okay.
I mean, you're just spurging at this point.
All of you, this was fun. It was enjoyable. Let's get back to the conversation at hand. I think.
Does anybody else keep like letting their mind wander for a second and then looking back at Sansol and for just a second thinking he's eating a burrito? Because that keeps happening to me every couple of minutes. I kind of forget that he's got some kind of yellow cover over his mic. I look back to him and I'm like, is that a burrito? Is this eating a burrito on the panel? It's so sorry. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
From Artemis Fowl, and then I have after this I do have a question to get us back on topic, perhaps. $10 from Artemis Fowl. It's not comparable, Gibbs. You don't have an infinite amount of money and the largest surveillance apparatus in the world and military to guard your backyard fence. Thank you for the $10.
Well, welcome. For people that are new, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Kick, I'm Sansol. I am a political science student. I like to talk about politics. I like to argue about politics. We talk about all sorts of fun things on here like drama and politics. And I like to argue with people in chat about a lot of different things. Like, comment, and subscribe. I don't like to shill. Also,